We're on a mission from God.
And now for something completely different.
Let's get ready to rumble! Yeah, baby, yeah!
Good morning and a happy Saturday to everyone. I'm Pastor Matt Youngblood Clark from Ascension Lutheran Church in beautiful South St. Louis.
And I'm Pastor Jolly John Lekumsky from St. Paul's Lutheran Church in New Athens, Illinois, and Trinity in Darmstadt, Illinois. And this is
Wrestling with the Basics.
And as we've now entered into the Lenten season, there are some things I'm reflecting on, Matt, because, you know, the Lent is kind of a somber time. And
Yes.
And there's some signs I'm seeing that maybe the world is coming to an end. Can I share with you some of these signs of the end that I've been noticing?
The end is near.
Reading
Okay.
the signs.
All right.
Did you know, for one thing, there's an armadillo invasion going on here in Missouri?
You know, I'm aware of that. I've seen that.
Have you seen the
Yeah,
armadillos?
I haven't seen
Are
a
they
living
coming in?
one yet, but I have seen lots of dead ones.
Okay.
Yeah, it's uncanny. And as you go south of kind of Interstate 44,
Yep.
they're
Yep.
everywhere. It's crazy.
So-
They
so-
didn't used to be that
Someday
way.
you're going to come into your church and there's going to be armadillos crawling
I know,
all
it's like
over.
Armadillo-ageddon. Something like that.
I'm sure that's in Revelation. One of those
That's
the
right.
armadillos.
It's not just apocryphal language, apocalyptic language. It's
right.
really happening.
Who thought? That's right. It's just true. Here's the other thing that disturbs me. Did you know we're going to have breakdancing in the Olympics?
Olympic breakdancing.
That's what they're
No
trying
way.
to get.
Is that right?
When they have it in Paris, France.
Is that
when you figure?
Is that a summer Olympic or a winter
I
Olympic?
have no idea. But whenever it's going to be in France, they want to have breakdancing. That says something about the French. And here's the final thing.
The French are a whole other story.
You know, now they have shoes that you can tie with an app on your phone.
Yes, that's what I
That's what we've all been waiting for, isn't it?
That's right.
How many times have I said that? Boy, I wish I had an app for my shoelaces.
You can just tie your shoes.
What?
Do
How?
we need that? And what happens if
know.
your phone loses its charge and you can't get your shoes off?
What do? You can't even leave the house then.
Yeah.
You're hopeless and helpless. You're just stuck
That's right.
there.
Sleep in your shoes because your app's
Your app
not
might
working.
die.
But here's
Oh,
the one thing
brother.
I want to hold it, because, you know, Lent is a somber time. It is a time when we worry about things like that, but it's
Sure.
also a time when we are ready to rejoice because we know how Lent ends. So here's a little bit of positive. They now have a bacon toaster, Matt. I thought you would appreciate
good.
that. I was going to get it for your birthday, but I forgot to order it.
That's
But
all
you
right,
just
John.
put the bacon in,
There's
and
always
poof,
next
it
year.
pops out just like
a
toast.
little taste of
a
heaven.
bacon toaster.
We'll wait till after Lent, post
for
Lent.
Christmas. I've got to get that
there
for
you
you
go.
for Christmas.
Perfect. The bacon toaster.
Yeah.
That's great. You don't need an app for that.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
No app. It just does itself. You just put the bacon
Put
in.
the raw bacon in the
and
toaster.
it pops up.
And off you go.
And it's adjustable. You can have it crisp or, however you'd like
Oh,
it.
look at that. Just like a real toaster.
Like a real toaster, of course.
Are you making this up?
No,
Are
this
you
is
just
true. Sharper Image. Get it out. So check it out. They have the bacon toaster on Sharper Image.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
Oh, boy. Just what we've been waiting for.
okay. Well, actually, what we've been waiting for.
It's not just bacon.
No, it's the study of the Word of God. That's what we're here for.
All right, now, there's no time for foolishness.
Thank you, John, for you're always keeping us on track. I'm always giving us off course, and you're always the faithful Jolly John.
I'm here to
getting
get us back to
on
the
track.
center. So Matt, you were telling me that there's actually something that since I know the Transfiguration was a Sunday ago, but give us a break, give us one more week, because you said there was something in the Old Testament that relates to the Transfiguration as well.
Yes, imagine that. When we think of the Transfiguration, we think primarily the gospel accounts of that event.
Wait, there's an armadillo behind you. Wait,
What's going on?
Get
Get
out,
right.
get out.
They're taking over KFUO radio even.
Oh man.
Watch out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't you know sarcasm when you hear it?
Anyway, thank you, Charlie Brown. So, yes, we think of the Gospels. We think of, now I think of the epistles, thanks to you and your study of Second Peter, right? And that eyewitness account of the Transfiguration.
Cleverly devised myths.
That's right.
Eyewitness, yeah.
Yep. And now we're going to think perhaps even of the Old Testament. Yeah. So what we want to do is we have three figures there, three key ones. Jesus first and foremost, but two are with him, right? Elijah, and the other one is Moses. So we want to look closer at Moses and his life. So in fact, this is in the 3-year lectionary that we're using. This is the Old Testament reading for the Transfiguration. Okay, so we're going to go to Deuteronomy, the book of Deuteronomy.
Okay.
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, chapter 34.
Thank you. I was
welcome,
wondering
John.
where to go. Appreciate that's a little help.
Whatever I can do. Chapter 34, begin with verse 1.
Okay.
And as we read this, we're probably thinking, what in the world does this have to do with the Transfiguration?
I'm figuring. I'm wondering.
Yeah, let's see if we see some similarities here. Okay, go ahead. So let's do verses 1 through 3.
Then Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo to the top of Pisgah, which is opposite Jericho. And the Lord showed him all the land, Gilead as far as Dan, all Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah as far as is the western sea, the Negeb and the plain, that is the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees as far as Zot.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Very good. Well done, John. All those tough names. So Moses
Actually, it's Zor.
Zor, but
Sure,
it was
it's not
close.
Zot,
It was
it's
close.
Zor. You need the big print. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Zot's somewhere up in Minnesota where you're
Zot,
going to be
Minnesota.
spending your summers.
Where we're living.
Zot, Minnesota. Well, so when is this taking place? Give us a little background, John. When is this taking place? Beginning or end of the Exodus?
Oh, the end of the Exodus.
That's the end of the Exodus.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, that's right. This is the end. This is his last of the 5 books, right?
Yes. So
the last of the 5 books of
well, that's
Moses.
right. Yeah, the next one's Joshua, right? So this is the last chapter, the last book that Moses wrote.
Yeah.
And Moses' life coming to an end, as we'll see. The Exodus is coming to an end. They're about to go in the Promised Land. And so God allows Moses to go up on the top of Mount Nebo here and shows him all the land of promise. So Moses gets to see it with his very own eyes. What a sight that must have been.
That was
I wonder
cool, yeah.
if Moses got a little emotional. He probably did because,
Well, especially considering he's not going to get to go in.
oh no! See, it
Yeah.
ain't so.
Yeah.
You're right. Moses isn't going to get to go into the Promised Land. You're right. You're right. He gets to see it with his own eyes, but he doesn't get to go in. And how old is Moses at the time? Do you remember how old he?
I
he
have
looked to be?
no idea.
Yeah, so he's 120.
Is that
so
right?
120 years old. So he's up there, right? But yet doesn't get to enter. Yeah. So what this account is we'll see, is the death of Moses. Okay. So we're going to hear about how Moses dies. And again, in the back of our minds, we're thinking, okay, what does this have to do with the Transfiguration? All right.
That's right. That's in the back of my mind. I sure hope. Because that's what we've been promoting the show as.
Better follow through
You're
here.
making me nervous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's keep going here, verses 4 through 6.
Hey, before we go, though, the thought just occurred to me. Isn't it cool knowing that this land that's being described here, that Moses is looking at, the Promised Land, it's the land where Jesus is going to minister and heal the sick and preach.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
That's the Promised Land. Yeah,
Yes.
right there.
The land of promise. He's the promise fulfilled.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just this so it's just so neat because you have this promise made. When was that made? Well, centuries beforehand, right?
Yeah.
You know, they've been enslaved for 400 plus years in Egypt. The promise was made before then. And then, like you said, that fulfillment's going to come finally centuries later. So Moses finds himself sort of in the middle of this promise made and promise kept. But here it is, all right? And it's being fulfilled even in Moses' midst as the promise goes on. So you have this grand story, anyway, that Moses is a large part of. But anyway, verses 4 through 6.
Yeah. And the Lord said to him, "This is the land of which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Yep. I will give it to your offspring. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you shall not go over there."
Yep.
So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. And he buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor. But no one knows the place of his burial to this day.
Yeah. So Mount Nebo, where he's at, that's on the east side of the Jordan River, looking over to the west side. And he dies. And who buries Moses? I think that's so interesting.
Oh, Yeah, God does. I thought that was cool,
Isn't
too.
that
Yeah.
cool?
Yep.
That God buries him, right?
Yeah.
God buries him in the valley in the land of Moab, okay? And according to Jewish history or tradition, rather,
Myths. Cleverly
devised myths we talked about last time. It's the angels who actually bury
Is that
Moses.
right?
I think that's kind of a neat picture.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of a mythical thing, but it's a neat picture. Regardless, though, whatever means he uses, God is the one who buries Moses. The scriptures say that. No one knows the place of the burial. I wonder why not. What do you think?
Well, I have a theory.
Yeah.
Because these Israelites have a tendency to pick up old stuff and worship it.
Yeah.
They'll be worshiping
that bronze serpent. Remember, they started worshiping that thing.
So I can just imagine if they knew where the grave of Moses is, they'd probably put a memorial there, and they'd all be going worshiping at the grave of Moses. And
I tend to think you're right. That there's that temptation of worship. The man who followed the Lord rather than the Lord himself.
Yeah.
All right, so
we do that too, isn't that interesting? We love the old stuff, and we worship the old stuff, and that's not necessarily bad. Traditions are good things, but that's probably not what we should put our focus on.
Yeah. You're right, and you're right. I mean, you're right.
Okay.
But I'm thinking, I don't know.
What are you thinking?
But I'm just thinking of, as you retire and you've been in the same parish for so many years.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Boy, there's a temptation to put up the big statue to Jolly John Lekumsky, in the church. But yet, as wonderful as a pastor you are, it's about the Savior you've proclaimed all those years and continue to. It's not about you.
It's funny because they have a great big picture of me in the back. And that picture either has to come down, or they need to take a great big picture of the new guy that comes in.
We don't want just a wallet size of the new guy next to your big portrait.
Do you have portraits of your former pastors in your church?
We do.
Many churches do. And again, there's nothing bad with that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, in any of those cases, it's all with that recognition that we're celebrating not that man, not that pastor, but we're celebrating the one that they proclaimed and how the Lord worked through them. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
We must become less that he can become more.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, no worshiping of Moses or at his grave. All right. Well, it gives us a little more detail here. Verses 7
So please don't come and worship
8.
at my grave, people. Okay. I'll just shut up. I'm glad I always bring us back to the point.
Thanks.
All right.
Just don't tell anyone where you're buried.
Oh, well.
And see, then you can avoid it, just like Moses.
That's right.
You and Moses have another similarity here.
What's that?
Well, you keep reading.
Okay.
We'll hear it.
Moses was 120 years old. When he died, his eyes were undimmed. Well, it can't be me, and his vigor was not abated. And the people of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. Then the days of weeping and mourning for Moses were ended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His eye were undimmed, his vigor unabated.
Yeah,
that's what I was
I
thinking.
can't even read the stupid Bible here. Not the Bible is stupid, but I can't read it. Yeah.
Yeah, so God gave him the energy, the vigor he needed to do his job. And now that the job is done, mission accomplished, he dies. And the Lord buries him. But vigor unabated. Yeah, the strength that God gives.
Isn't that cool? I think that's such a nice concept, though. Yeah. God's put you here. He's got a job for you to do. Yep. As soon as you're done with that job, he's going to take you home. Because really, why is he keeping you here anyway? It's a lot better in heaven.
No kidding, yeah.
Yeah. That Luther said, they said the best thing God could do is baptize us and then strangle us.
Yeah.
In typical Lutheran fashion.
Okay.
But you had that quote.
Yeah, we had that just a couple weeks ago. Then we go to be with the Lord. What could be better? Yeah. But our neighbor needs us. He's got a job for us to do. And thanks be to God that he just gives the gifts needed to fulfill the callings we have, whether that's a pastor or whether it's a mother or father or a husband or wife, whatever it is. God gives us the gifts we need to fulfill that calling. Thanks be to God.
Nice thought. Yeah.
All right. Then we kind of have this little eulogy almost for Moses, if you want to wrap up this book of Deuteronomy.
And Joshua, the son of Nun, was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands on him. So the people of Israel obeyed him and did as the Lord had commanded Moses. And there has not arisen a prophet since in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. None like him for all the signs and wonders that the Lord sent to him to do in the land of Egypt, to Pharaoh and to all his servants and to all his land, and for all the mighty power and all the great deeds of terror that Moses did in the sight of all Israel.
Yeah.
That's a nice obituary.
Moses is special. God's special servant for that time and place. No one like him, except until that one who comes, the new Moses, the greater Moses, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So neat. Okay, so what's the deal here? Why can't Moses go into the promised land? What's the deal here?
Well, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he sinned, obviously.
He sinned, yeah. He's imperfect. He sinned, and he sinned one way in particular. Remember what that was?
Was he supposed to get some water coming out of a rock? And God just said, speak to the rock. And no, he had to hit the rock with his staff. And Yeah,
exactly. So we go back to just a couple chapters, Deuteronomy chapter 32. Just real quick, it says, because you broke faith with me, the Lord says, in the midst of the people of Israel, the waters of Meribah and Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin, and because you did not treat me as holy in the midst of the people of Israel, for you shall see the land before you, but you shall not go there into the land that I'm giving to the people of Israel. So there it is. Now, Moses, great as a prophet as he was, is an imperfect guy. And he sinned in other ways, too. You know, for one, I think back in Egypt, remember what he did to the Egyptian guy?
Yep, that's right. Murdered
him, right? But here, that's not the specific reason why he's not entering. It's because of this episode with this water and this rock. Kind of interesting. So, as time allows, let's take a quick look at that.
Okay,
that account.
Sounds good. So where are we going?
Okay, so we're going to Numbers chapter 20, and we'll just, I think we can be kind of brief with this because I think our listeners
don't feel compelled. We can do it and continue this to next week.
You know, my wife was listening to Wrestling the Basics. She said, that's one of the things I love is you guys, you don't get under pressure because of the time. It's if you don't finish it, you do it next week. And it's just, people keep listening, and that is kind of nice.
We'll be back. We will be. Yeah.
So here we are,
chapter 20,
beginning with verse 2. And we'll just see how far we get here.
Okay. 20 verse 2?
Numbers chapter...
Oh, Numbers.
I'm sorry.
Okay. What was it again? Genesis?
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers chapter 20, verse 2.
I was still in Deuteronomy.
That's all right. The waters of Meribah.
There we go. All right. Here we go. Now there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and the people quarreled with Moses and said, would that we had perished. Boy, they say that all the time, don't they? Would we had perished.
I know.
Would that we had perished when our brothers perished before the Lord. Why have you brought the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness, that we should die here, both we and our cattle? And haven't they done this before?
Doesn't it sound familiar?
Yeah.
I know. It's grumbling the whole way there.
Yeah. That we should die here, both we and our cattle. And why have you made us come up out of Egypt to bring us to this evil place? It is no place for grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink.
Yeah.
Then stop there.
Yeah, stop there for a second.
Right.
So at this point, they've already gotten to the promised land. They've already scouted out Jericho, and they've already disobediently decided, well, we can't do this. God can't do this for us. So they've been wandering in the wilderness already a long time when this takes place.
They got themselves into the situation with the same kind of grumbling, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that we had died. Okay, if that's what you want.
Yeah, well, and here's the deal. So after they scout out the land and after they decide, we're not going to do this, right? They wander for 40 years. Part of the reason is that whole generation dies off. Everyone over the age of 20. Well, that's already taken place. They've already pretty much died off. So these people here talking are the new generation.
Yeah.
And so, Moses is like 100 years old plus at this time, and he's hearing the same darn thing that their parents said. But what kind of gets me is they act like they know what Egypt was like. And maybe they were a teenager or something in Egypt, but they don't know what it was like.
No.
But that's what they long for. And so they're grumbling and complaining, and they don't even know what they're talking about.
So all right. That's the way it is. We're always talking about the good old days.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I remember the good old days when we'd have to go outside and use the outhouse. That was the good old days. And the other thing, as a pastor of now 40 years, you're right. It doesn't change. Same kind of grumbling and complaining that went on when I was a young guy. Same kind of grumbling and complaining that's going on now that I'm an old guy.
Yep. So there they are, and here goes Moses again. What do Moses and Aaron do, though? Verse 6. Why don't we go first 6 through 9?
Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell on their faces. And the glory.
Well, let's not
okay, all right.
I think this is pretty cool. In the face of that, what do Moses and Aaron do? They go to the Lord.
Yeah.
They bow down to him. They come to him in prayer and humbleness and humility. And hopefully that's what we do too as pastors when there's grumbling. And no matter who we are, that we take that before the Lord. And the Lord, in this case, gives them answer.
Isn't that super cool, Matt? Thank you for pointing that out. What do you do in the face of other people's grumbling? What do you do in the face of your own grumbling? Well, just go to the Lord, why don't you?
Humbly, falling on their faces. Yeah.
And the glory of the Lord appeared to them. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the staff and assemble the congregation, you and Aaron your brother, and tell the rock before their eyes to yield its water. So you shall bring water out of the rock for them and give drink to the congregation and their cattle. And Moses took the staff from before the Lord as he commanded him.
Yeah. Simple enough, miraculous, but simple enough. Tell the rock.
Yeah.
Speak to the rock, and it will put forth water. We
were talking about myths, and you mentioned earlier the myth of the angels. Did you know the Jewish myth that this rock followed them wherever they went?
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of cool too.
Yeah.
That's why whenever you need water, you go to the rock.
You go to the rock.
Yeah.
And so in the New Testament, then you have this, equated with Jesus, too. So all these different layers here, right? Here, I think this particular one, it's the power of the word too.
Oh yeah.
Speak to the rock. That's all you got to do. The power of the word. And we see Moses disobeys the word.
Well,
right?
See, now you got because Jesus is
the word and the rock. I mean, Jesus is permeating this whole thing here.
If you're asking where you fall down on your face now, if you want to go to the Lord, where you go wherever Jesus' word is, that's where you fall down and pray. Yeah. So, all right, I'm sorry. Then Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock, and he said to them, "Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock?" And Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his staff twice. And water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their livestock. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not believe in me, to uphold me as holy in the eyes of the people of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them.
So he tells them right there, right? So a couple of things here. Why is this so bad? Well, for one, Moses says to them, you rebels, we bring water for you from this rock. So, I mean, he's not giving glory to God, it seems, but to himself. And, he's frustrated. He's angry. I get it. But yet he says, we're going to do this. And then, of course, he disobeys. Instead of trusting the power of the word, instead he strikes the rock, not just once, but twice, right?
Yeah.
So this disobedience to God, maybe a disbelief of God's promise of the power of the word, and this glory to himself, perhaps, rather than to the Lord. Sort of wants to take credit, it seems, for this. Watch me. I'm going to knock this with my staff. And disobeys God.
Matt, the business about hitting it with a staff, I've noticed that before, but I'd never picked up on what you said there, the pride that was involved in that too.
Yeah.
I think that's a great insight.
Moses, the meekest of people, as we hear later, isn't acting so meek here in this instance. Yeah.
Gosh, and it just hits so home with me because when people start grumbling and complaining about you, you just so much want to kind of take it into your own hands, whereas really you just need to trust in the Lord and that the Lord will take care of everything. So, anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know. What a beautiful picture here. That's something Moses does right. you know. And we're going to have to start wrapping up here, John.
Okay.
But I really, really want to invite our listeners to come back next week for Wrestling with the Basics because we want to make that connection then to the Transfiguration, Moses, that figure. And there's a word there in particular that I think ties together Moses and Jesus in a really neat way. So really, come back if you can next week.
You had me worried because, we made a guarantee. I don't have to give them their money back.
Yeah. Well, now I have a whole week to figure it out.
All right. Cool. Now you got me excited.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, hope you tune in again next week for Wrestling with the Basics.